And that's why you have to have firewalls to guard you against lust, idolatry, fornication, tempting Christ, and murmuring. Isn't it interesting that he would put murmuring there, the same category with idolatry? When you run in your mouth, always finding a problem with every solution? When you're just so pessimistic, negative about life, negative about people, always want to talk about a person's weaknesses? I mean, a person could have done 1,000 positive things, and you happen to deal with the 3 negative things that they've ever done in your life. That's just murmuring. Always, you broke, you in the wilderness, you don't have any money, and somebody feeds you, and now you start complaining about the quality of the food. And you didn't have anything to eat on your own. You could have been starving. I mean, when you are starving, and if somebody burns a toast and invites you to breakfast, I don't know about you, but I know how to deal with burnt toast. I burned the last 2 pieces, and I'm like, I wanted my sandwich. I took a knife. It's amazing when you don't have but a little how creative you can become. But I refuse to stand there and murmur and gripe and complain and bellyache. I'm like, Lord, I'm going to make the best of this situation. If I've got to go, I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm not going to let this ruin my day. So God can bless people who are not murmurers. I'm just telling you, murmuring, griping, complaining people always have something to complain about. Always. 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 Touch your neighbor. Say, I know that person. I know them. I know them. There are some people that regardless as to what goes on, it could be a wonderful movie, a wonderful book, and they will find the one thing. They act as though it's a spiritual gift. Finding something wrong with everything and everybody. They think like that is not the gift of discernment. It is not. That's a delusion. And they think that they're operating. No, it's murmuring. Where they start murmuring and complaining. What are your firewalls? You need a wall against negative, complaining people in your life. You need walls. You need walls. And then, remember, you need walls to protect, but you need bridges to connect. And it becomes a sin for us. Hear me carefully. It becomes a sin for us to build a wall in a place where we should build a bridge. Because not everybody who's around you is your enemy. Who's around you ought to be community. It ought to be a beloved community. And we need bridges to connect us to allies. We need bridges to connect us to allies. Now, here are some bridges that will connect you to allies. Forgiveness. If you have unforgiveness closes relationship. It binds, but when you forgive people, it opens and restores relationship. If somebody has done something wrong, you need forgiveness. Apologize and just forgive each other. But forgiveness creates a bridge between allies. Forgiveness. Here's another thing. You need to connect with somebody. Serving. When you serve people, you connect with them. When you serve people, you connect with people. If you really want to connect with a person who's in the world, find a way to serve them. Serving connects you with people. It connects you with people. When you see a need and serve that need, it connects you with people. It connects you with people. Just when you serve, if you see a need and respond to the need, it somehow has this uncanny ability just by serving. I told you when the bishop, I was invited to a banquet, and they beckoned for me to come to one of the tables where some really wealthy people were sitting. I felt so wonderful. Now, I wasn't used to this, where I was the brokest one at the table. And 2 billionaires are here. I'm like, okay. But you know what I said when I was sitting there, and I knew one of the billionaires, I wanted to know the other one. And so I'm sitting and I said, Lord, I said, I believe that everybody, no matter how much money they have, everybody has a need. May not be the same need as everybody else, but I said everybody has a need. And I sat there at the table and I said, Lord, show me a need. And I you know, the Lord knew exactly who I was talking about. I didn't want to point. They say it's rude to point. But I said, Lord, show me a need that's in his life that I can fill. Show me something that I can do to serve him. Just show me what I can do to serve him. And as soon as we finished eating our meal, he asked for a cup of coffee. And they brought his coffee, sat it on the table. But for some reason, we're in a fine establishment. They bring this man's coffee in a paper cup. And I saw him take a sip, and he quickly put it down because it was burning his fingers. Immediately, the bishop sees a need. I get up immediately, and I go to the maitre d', and I say, listen, yo, can you get me a ceramic cup? And he gave me a ceramic cup, a clean cup. I brought it back to the table, took his paper cup of coffee, poured it into the ceramic cup, and sat it down in front of the billionaire. Now he looks up at me and he says, thank you, Bishop, or is it Pastor? I say, it doesn't matter what you call me as long as you call me. And it was interesting. There was an empty chair next to the billionaire. I wasn't sitting in that chair. I was across the table. But he looked at the empty chair and pointed to it, and he said, sit down. For the next 30 minutes, this man downloaded to me some of the greatest wisdom that I have ever received in my life. And I got all of that wisdom for the sake of serving a cup of coffee. Just serving created a bridge. I was across the table. I had no connection with him until I saw a need and served it. When I served, I created a bridge with a wealthy guy. And for the cost of a cup of coffee, let me tell you what that little cup of coffee led to. Listen, I've been out on his yacht. He had two of them. One was like a Rolls Royce, the other was a Cadillac. I chose the Rolls Royce. But it all came because I saw a need and served the need, and it made a connection. Forgiveness creates a bridge. Serving creates a bridge. Number 3, kindness creates a bridge. Kindness. Just being polite. Just sometimes smiling at somebody. You'd be surprised somebody can just smile at you from across the room. And I know people are having conversation like, I know he ain't looking at me. I know. And you'd be surprised. Just a kind look, just pleasantness, just somebody smiling at you actually creates a bridge and can connect two people. See, you have to realize, what are my bridges? What are my bridges? What are my bridges? How do I build allies here? Just a smile is one of the quickest paths to being able to connect with people. People are drawn to smiling people. They're drawn to smiling people. I mean, if you are going into a room and there's a smiling person here and there's an empty chair, and a grumpy person here and there's an empty chair, which one are you going to choose? See, smiling creates a bridge. Just kindness, politeness, smiling. Forgiveness, serving, kindness. Here's number 4, common interests. Common interests. It creates a bridge. You have a child that's in the 3rd grade? I have a child that's in the 3rd grade. Oh my goodness. Does your child ever come home and ask you about this and that? And all of a sudden, just because you have a common interest, common passion, common values, just because you have something in common, it creates a bridge. Does that make sense to you? You want to be able to create a bridge, and then communication. Communication also creates a bridge. Just when you open up your mouth to talk to somebody, you create a bridge. There's a great divide until somebody breaks the ice and says, hello. And then you tell them your name. And just through communication, remember the word communication in the Latin is communicare, and it simply means common ground. You don't communicate unless you have some basis of common ground. Sometimes the common ground might be that you're both the same sex, or that you both speak the same language, or you're from the same hometown. But there has to be a basis of communication that just connects the two people. So we need bridges to connect us to allies. Just use it, forgiveness, serving, find a need and meet it through kindness. Learn to smile, just be polite to people. You'll be surprised. It makes you magnetic. Having common interests, common passions, common values, and use communication. Just open your mouth and initiate the conversation. Speak. Just speak. Just speak. You'll be surprised. I want you to notice the scripture in 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 4. Then the city wall was broken through, and all the men of war fled at night by way of the gate between two walls, which was by the king's garden, even though the Chaldeans were still encamped all around against the city. And the king went by the way of the plain. Now, notice I told you that they had these really thick walls, and oftentimes they would do double walls because that gave them an extra layer of protection. And not only that, the little alleyway in between the two walls provided an escape route in case there was an invasion at some other junction in the wall. So here they use the double wall as an emergency escape route. And today, God still provides an escape route for his children. Do you know that? You remember 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13? Notice what that says. 1 Corinthians 10, 13. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above what you're able, but with the temptation will also make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. God will always have an escape door. God will show you a way. I'm just telling you, you don't have to go out and fornicate. You may not take this escape route, but it's there. God will always show you the door. He'll show you somebody be trying to entice you into some type of shady financial deal. He said, no, here's the door. Here's the door. You can get out of this. You don't have to go. God will always show you that escape route. Sometimes the escape route is just when you get this intuition of the Holy Spirit said, don't do that. Don't go with them. That becomes he's trying to say, listen, here's the escape stairway right here. You exit stage right. And he's trying to say, I'm trying to provide a way for you to get out of this right now. Get out of this. Get out of this thing right now. God provides escape routes for his people. You just remember that. Meditate on that. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. And I'm telling you, the escape route is there. Look for it. Look for it. Look for it. Whenever there's trouble, God gives you a way out. You don't have to do it. You have a choice. There's always a way. There's always a way. You can stay or you can take the way, which is the escape route. Take the escape route. And it's interesting. I want you to notice that in the case of war, the enemy besieged a city and made efforts to try to breach through the wall, sometimes with a battering ram. And the goal was to force a breach so that they could then, that was big enough for them to enter the city. But there's territory that God has designed for you. You know, there are some things that God has left undiscovered and untapped in this world just for you. It's got your name on it. You were born for such a time as this. You were born. They're waiting on Esther. They're waiting on you. They're waiting on something, a gift that is locked up in your bosom. They're waiting for creativity that comes out of your mind. They're waiting for the equity that God has locked in you. It's in you, and that becomes your promised land. That becomes your promised land. See, there's a territory that's waiting for you. Listen, I want you to understand that God's got a place prepared for you. He said, I know the plans that I have for you. I know the plans. And God says, I'm trying to get you to that place called there. He takes you the scenic route. The scenic route. And you run into some things that are like dead ends, and you'll come to some areas that lead you around in circles, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, and you become discouraged. But he's developing something in us that whole while But what are you waiting on to take possession of what God has already given to you? God has already purchased your future. I want you to hear this very carefully. God has already purchased your future. But you claim it at will call. Say will call. See, you got to have, your will has to be established in it. I mean, it's already said, God says, I've already got this place for you. I've got a seat, but I'm leaving your ticket at will call. You got to exercise your will. Call your will into it. David had to call his will into it. I will bless the Lord. He had to call his will into it. The access to get into the place where God has prepared for you is available at will call. Will call. You got to set your will and call it, because the seat has already been paid for. You just got to pick up the ticket at will call. It takes your setting determinedly your will to be able to go there. Notice Joshua chapter 18 verse 3. Then Joshua said to the children of Israel, how long will you neglect to go and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers has given you? How long? How long will you neglect to go and possess the land? This territory, your promised land. How long will you neglect it? It's at will call. How long will you neglect it? You'll be surprised how much stuff is left at will call. You know how much money is left in unclaimed places here in America? It's unclaimed. They got, I know that the folks who have it there don't know about it. It's unclaimed because, if you knew it, you'd be down there filling out every form, taking all your ID and 2 pieces of identification, everything. You'd be down there trying to claim. Most folks that have the stuff that's down there, they just don't know that it's there waiting on them. They've got billions of dollars in unclaimed money. Unclaimed. That the folks who are in dire straits, they don't know it. But there's money that's waiting. You got to use it, your will call. Possess it. Possess it. And isn't it interesting to know that you don't discover some enemies in your life until you get ready to build something? There are some enemies that you will never discover until you get ready to build something. And some people will try to thwart what you're doing, what you're building, because of jealousy, ignorance, and evil intentions. You'll be surprised. You will be surprised. But Nehemiah was ordained by God to do what he was doing, and he was still opposed. He was still opposed. You can assume that because God has designed you to do something, that everything is going to just flow your way. But God can be with you, and you'll still go through HE double hockey sticks, trying to make it a reality. Isn't that amazing? Nehemiah was opposed, but how did he deal with it? I want you to notice how he dealt with it. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 4 through 6. Notice this. He says, "Hear, O God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads, and give them as plunder to a land of captivity." You know, they didn't pray these real nice prayers against their enemy in the Old Testament. I mean, when they prayed for you in the Old Testament, that was some scriptures, and I saw the people praying. They said they would pray God knock their teeth out. I mean, I know people today that pray these Old Testament prayers. But he says, God, the people that who have despised us, turn their reproach on their own heads and give them as plunder to the land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity, and do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders. So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now I want you to notice, when he was opposed, how did he deal with it? I mean, he prayed for them. Notice, Nehemiah overcame it by prayer and work. I want you to notice that. Nehemiah overcame it by prayer and work. Remember, faith without works is dead, and dead faith doesn't work. Nehemiah overcame it by prayer and work. I want you to notice in verse 9 here. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 9. Notice this. "Nevertheless, we made our prayer to God, and because of them, we set a watch against them day and night." Here's another thing that he used. Nehemiah used prayer and preparedness. He used prayer and preparedness. I tell people this: pray like it's all left up to God and work like it's all left up to you. You got to prepare as though you've got to do it all, but pray as though God is going to do it all. Because it takes both prayer and preparedness on your behalf. You see, it says, because we have set a watch against them day and night. He says, we on watch. I mean, they didn't just pray, they worked with a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other. They're like, you know what, I'm building here, but you come up here, I got something for that. They use both prayer and preparedness. Prayer and preparedness. Notice Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 13 and 14. He says, therefore, I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. My God, you got to fight for something. Listen, when Nehemiah was opposed by constant threatening, he overcame it by constant preparedness. Constant preparedness. He was prepared to fight for his families. They were equipped with swords and spears and bows, and they fought. They were prepared. When Nehemiah was opposed, through accusation, he overcame by prayer and self-control. Prayer and self-control. He had to control himself. You lose. If you lose control, you lose. If you lose control, you lose. I want you to notice Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 8 and 9. Then I sent to him, saying, no such things as you say are being done, but you invent them in your own heart. For they were all trying to make us afraid, saying, their hand will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hand. You see, when Nehemiah was opposed by craftiness through being distracted, he overcame by wisdom and work. Wisdom and work. Wisdom and work. He had to realize what was happening, and wisdom helped him to see through that. Notice it in Nehemiah 6 and verse 3. So I sent messengers to them saying, I'm doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease when I leave it and go down to you? See, Nehemiah kept his mind on what God called him to do, and he wouldn't let anybody distract him. See, you can get what you want by, I should say it this way, you can't get what you want by focusing on what you don't want. You can't get what you want by focusing on what you don't want. Here's the deal, and this is the progression. Distraction leads to dislocation, leads to deception. Deception leads to dislocation, and dislocation leads to destruction. In that order. Distraction. Remember what happened with Adam and Eve? The first thing that happened, Eve got distracted. Psst. Let me holler at you. Distraction leads to deception. She got deceived. See, the moment that she got distracted, it called her out of her place. She got dislocated. Dislocated. Deception leads to dislocation. Somebody is talking to your child over the internet, getting them deceived, making them think that they have a love relationship. And then they say, why don't you meet me after your school? What school do you go to? I will meet you there at 3:30 tomorrow. Because now he's distracted her and deceived her. Now he's trying to get her dislocated. And as long as you stay in your place, even that deception won't work. He has to get you dislocated. He's got to get you pulled away from your family. He's got to get you out of your place of prayer, out of your spiritual connection to the church. He's trying to get you dislocated, because if he can get you dislocated, he can get you destroyed. When you get out of the place of safety, dislocated from those that are called to be community for you, if he can get you out of your small group, out of your discipleship group, out of that safe place, you see, the place where you can share your heart, where you can create covenant and create community. If he can get you out of that, if he can get you dislocated, he can get you destroyed. See, remember, distraction leads to deception. Deception leads to dislocation. Dislocation leads to destruction. And when everything in your whole being is telling you to come off the task for just a moment, you have to keep your focus and stay on the wall. I love something that Bruce Barton said. He said, nothing splendid has ever been achieved except by those who dared believe that something inside them was superior to circumstances. And you got to be able to have something on the inside of you that nothing splendid has never been achieved except by those who dared believe that something inside them was superior to circumstances. You got to dare to believe that something that's on the inside of you is superior to the circumstances that are surrounding you. And it was good that Nehemiah had a mind to complete this work, because you know, without modern industrialization and tractors and all of that, they had to build a wall and repair a breach. You know how long they did it? 52 days. The whole wall was built in 52 days. And here's the deal, that the achievement of one goal should be the starting place of another. Keep your focus, because you only have a specified amount of time to finish. Keep your focus. Keep your focus. There's a job that you've been called to do, and things called circumstances and situations and people are trying to distract you. But you're responsible for what God told you to do. You're responsible for stewarding the gift that's in your life. You're responsible for fighting your fight. You're responsible for finishing your course. You're responsible for keeping the faith. That's your job. You've got to do it and make it happen. I hope you got something out of the word of the Lord.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.